Today I have 16 physical books to haul for you. It's always very exciting to do a physical haul since most of mine are like ebooks and e-arcs that I've been sent. So I do love it when I get to do a physical book haul. I'm going to kick it off with some non-fiction, beginning with Love and Sex with Robots by David Levy. I have almost finished this one now, and as you can see, it has got a lot of attention. I picked this one up because I was writing a science fiction story about sex robots and their impact on the sex industry, and this book was just totally an indispensable source. It takes a really close look at the relationships we form with computers, the relationships that have been formed with robots, and the sexual elements of those kinds of relationships. I'm going to be talking about this one more in my March wrap-up, so look out for that. Next up, I have The Booby Trap and Other Bits and Bobs, which is edited by Dawn O'Porter, and I love Dawn O'Porter. I really love her fiction, her duology, Goose and Paper Aeroplanes. I really enjoyed both of those books. And she has a new book coming out, The Cows, which I'm really excited to get to. This is a book about boobs, and £1 from the sale of each of these books goes to various breast-related charities: Breast Cancer Care, Copperfield, and Breakthrough Breast Cancer. Dawn has edited together a bunch of short stories and articles and comic strips about boobs, and there are contributors here like Caitlin Moran, Sarah Milliken, Chris O'Dowd, Benjamin Zephaniah, Claudia Winkleman, Caroline Flack, Jenny Eclair. So many people who are really great, so I'm really looking forward to dipping into this one. I have a number of books in this haul that were given to me as sort of thanks for a work placement I did at a publishing magazine, and the first of these books that I'm going to show you is Stand Up and Sock It to Them Sister. I'm absolutely going to butcher this name because it is in Welsh, but it is by Gwenno Daffyd, and this is about making it in the world of comedy if you are a woman. Traditionally, comedy is kind of a boys' club, and there are a number of difficulties that female comedians face because of this. I'm really into comedy. I love sort of like, particularly the British kind of comedy scene, like the stand-up scene. I'm really into it. And I absolutely love finding fantastic female comedians. And can we just take a moment to just appreciate this cover? Look at how beautiful this is. This is awesome. I love it. This one is published by Parthian Books, and I am really looking forward to getting to it. Moving on to some more classical non-fiction, I have Mary Wollstonecraft's A Vindication of the Rights of Women. This is Mary Wollstonecraft's Declaration for Female Independence in 1792. This attacks ideas of docile, decorative femininity. This is about championing equal education for girls and for women to define themselves by their career, not the person they marry. I also absolutely love these Penguin Classics editions, and they're just like the really nice floppy paperbacks. I think this is a really important book for people who are interested in the history of feminism and feminist literary history in particular. So yes, not sure when I'm going to get around to this one, but I am really excited for when I eventually do. It just looks so nice. I love how this book's put together. Some other classical stuff now. I have two beautiful copies of children's books, starting with J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan. It's published by Egmont, and I didn't know this when I picked it up, but it is published in association with Great Ormond Street Hospital, which I think is really fantastic. It's just so beautiful, and look at this. Look how lovely this is. I'm sure we're all kind of familiar with the story of Peter Pan and Wendy, although as per usual, the actual story is quite a bit darker than Disney have led us to believe. I've never actually read this. I gave an audiobook of it a go like last year and didn't really get on with it. I think it might have just been the wrong time for me to read it. So maybe this beautiful copy will help me to have another go with it. And I also have Frances Hodgins Burnett. I always struggle with her name. A Little Princess. I read The Secret Garden last year for a children's prose module, and I really got on with it. I thought the writing style was really interesting. It was like a little bit elitist and colonial, as much of children's literature of that period is. I don't actually know too much about this one, so I am going to read the blurb of it to you. Heiress Sarah Crewe, of course she's an heiress, of course, has everything a little girl could want, until the sudden death of her father leaves her penniless at Miss Minchin's seminary. Of course. Typical children's literature trope. We've got to get rid of those parents. But she discovers that you can still feel like a princess if you are surrounded by friends, even when you're poor, cold, and hungry. A Little Princess is a beloved classic. First published in 1905, it still has the power to delight readers of all ages. Again, a totally just beautiful edition of this book. And oh my god, the end pages, look at them. Next up, I have this lovely edition of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit. I read The Hobbit a couple of years ago before the first film came out, and I didn't love it. I thought it was fine, but I really would like to revisit it at some point. I don't know if maybe it was just the right book at the wrong time or something like that, but I've always loved this edition of The Hobbit, and when I saw it in a book swap, I was like, I need this in my life. I need it. I don't need to describe the plot of The Hobbit. You guys know what happens in The Hobbit. Another beautifully designed book. I have The Confidence Man and Billy Budd Sailor by Herman Melville. So these are two different stories in the one book, and it is the Penguin English Library edition, and I am slowly building up a collection of these books because I absolutely love how they look. In The Confidence Man, Melville's unnerving and hallucinatory satire on the American dream, a slippery trickster and the master of disguise comes to swindle his fellow passengers, who themselves may also be con men aboard a Mississippi steamboat. Billy Budd Sailor, published after Melville's death in 1891, is a gripping allegory of good and evil, and as an innocent man pressed into service on a British man-of-war, is falsely accused of mutiny. I've been reading a lot of American fiction lately because of what I'm studying at university. That has mostly been from the 20th century though, so it'd be really interesting to read some stuff that is published in the 19th century to have a wider context of American literary history. I'm not gonna lie, I did just mainly pick this up because look how beautiful it is, and it was only like a couple pounds. Speaking of the history of American literature, I have the complete stories of Zora Neale Hurston. Zora Neale Hurston was a really influential and important writer in the Harlem Renaissance, but unfortunately her work sort of fell out of popularity and was forgotten after her death. This was until Alice Walker decided to do something about it. You may know her as the writer of The Colour Purple. Her stories have a lot to do with gender inequality and racial inequality, particularly to do with African Americans in the Deep South. Most strikingly, her stories are written in vernacular, so they are written in the accent they would have been spoken in. And I think that's absolutely fantastic and a really wonderful reading experience. I love writers that write in dialect and vernacular. Next up, I have some poetry collections, and this is another one of the books that I was very kindly given after my placement at a publishing magazine, and it is Long Shadows by Viuela Carlin. I really hope I pronounced that properly. So this poet was born in South Africa in 1949, and her name translates to rejoicing at the birth of a girl, and I think that's absolutely wonderful. She was brought up in Uganda and then came to England and went on to study English at university. I don't know too much about her style of poetry or what sort of themes she tends to deal with, so if you've read anything by this poet before, do let me know down below. Next up, I have Mary O'Malley's Playing the Octopus. This is her 8th collection of poems, and it is very attuned to the spirit of the west coast of Ireland. I am very much into Irish poetry, so I'm definitely looking forward to delving into this one. Next, I have Maria Apicella's Psalmody. Fairly recently ran an event with Maria where we invited her in to read some of her poems and have a Q&A afterwards, and she is just the nicest person in the world. She is so lovely. An alumni of our university, so that's how we made that kind of connection with her, and I'm really looking forward to reading this collection cover to cover. I've read a couple poems from it and heard her read a couple of them, but I've not read the whole thing all the way through yet. It's grounded in the relationship between someone who is very religious and an atheist, so I think that's a really interesting idea to explore, and I'm really looking forward to getting around to this. Next, I have The Story of Antigone by Ali Smith. All of the beautiful books in this haul. I don't know too much about this one. I think it may be based in some Greek myths and stuff, and I'm really unfamiliar with Greek myths. It's something my literary knowledge is really lacking in. So I'm going to read you the blurb, which is on the inside flap. When two brothers, Eteocles and Polynices, I'm so sorry, die in a vicious battle over the crown of Thebes, the new ruler, King Creon, decides that Eteocles will be buried as a hero, while Polynices... I cannot read this because I just feel so embarrassed about how I'm butchering all the names. Will be left outside as a feast for the dogs and the crows. But the young Antigone, daughter of Oedipus, will defy the cruel tyrant and attempt to give her brother the burial he deserves. This simple act of love and bravery will set in motion a terrible course of events that will reverberate across the entire kingdom. I'm gonna flick through this book for you because it's so beautiful on the inside. And it's a really short one as well, so I'm really looking forward to getting around to it. Do you know what? I'm going to leave the haul there and I'm going to save the few books that I have left for next time. Mainly because I'm getting really hungry. Also, I've already filmed a half hour of footage, so I should probably wrap it up. Do let me know down below if you have any thoughts on the books that I've hauled today. Are there any of them that I really need to get to soon? Let me know down below and I will talk to you guys in a few days.